Hey guys, welcome to LA Love Creative. Make sure to turn on notifications so you know when we post a new video. Today we're talking about the Canon EOS R. Cue the intro. Now I recently got my hands on the Canon EOS R. I was a little skeptical of this camera at first. I didn't really know what to expect, and I was surprised and also let down in a couple ways. The Canon EOS R, I had a chance to try out on a model shoot recently. I had my friend Tiffany Toto once again help me out on a video, and it was a lot of fun using the camera, I will have to admit. Some of the things I love about the Canon EOS R are one of the things I love about the Canon EOS, I am going to just, what is with the names of these cameras? One of the things I love about the Canon EOS R is its image quality. I will say that this camera is the same sensor as the Canon Mark IV, so image quality, if you like that image, you're going to like the Canon EOS R. It's a little bit different, a little bit better in quality, but not that much. I will say that the Canon EOS R has a leg up when it comes to the form factor. I like the way that this camera feels compared to like the Canon Mark IV or Mark III. I love that this camera has an articulating screen finally. I think every camera nowadays should have them. I don't know why people make excuses like, oh, you know, cinema cameras, this camera shouldn't have one. I'm like, why couldn't they? Why can't we just have articulating screens in every camera now? Why? One of the things I really like about the Canon EOS R as well is the autofocus. Canon really kills it when it comes to autofocus. Everyone knows this. I talk about it all the time. And the Canon EOS R autofocus system is really, really good. What I like also about the Canon EOS R is they have Canon log profiles. Finally, put the log in the Canon DSLR. I think, yes, the Mark IV had it eventually, and yes, like the 1DX has it, like, but I just want log profiles. Just give them to me. Why won't you give them to me? You'll be able to match this camera pretty well with those high-end cinema cameras. So this is a good B or maybe C camera for that. And I think with Canon log in this camera, it really makes a big difference. As far as dynamic range, this camera is a little weak in that department. When it comes to stills and video, you're gonna find yourself, when you underexpose, getting weird green banding in the files, in the footage. It's kind of weird. It's funny that Canon at one point was this low light king of a camera brand, and then all of a sudden Sony came out with the A7S and all these other cameras, and now it's starting to look like Canon is getting left behind. Dynamic range on this camera is decent, but could be better. Now, some of the things I really don't like about this camera is it has a 30 megapixel sensor, so when you zoom in on an image, you're gonna get a lot of detail. You're gonna be very surprised at how sharp this camera actually is. In video, however, if you're more of a videographer, this is a very soft image. Another thing about this camera I wasn't a big fan of, and I know all of you are probably gonna say, you can use a stabilizer, you can do this, like, I don't know. For me, I need in-body stabilization. And this camera, when I was handheld shooting, felt very, very shaky. And I am not the shakiest when it comes to cameras. So I would have loved some stabilization in this camera. Another big deal breaker for me for the EOS R is slow motion. This camera has 60p at 1080. This camera has 120 frames per second at 720. What is that? In 2018, I haven't heard 720 in a camera in a long time. Compared to a lot of mirrorless options right now, to see a camera come out and have 720p, at 120 frames per second is a big letdown. And not only that, if the 720p was pretty good, I wouldn't have had a big issue with it, but it's very soft and unusable for most situations. But the biggest thing for me that I don't like about this camera is the 4K crop. The 4K image coming out of the EOS R is an amazing image. It looks pretty good, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose when you have a crop this bad. It's almost like a 2x crop. You can find ways to work around it. I'm not saying that's impossible, but for me, I think it's unusable. I don't like being in situations where my 24mm lens is not a 24. This camera had a lot of potential, and I feel like the 4K crop really stunts its growth. Now, would I recommend the Canon EOS R to other people? If you're a beginning photographer, videographer, this is a great camera for you to jump on. If you also have a Canon lineup of cameras, let's say you have the C200, C300 Mark II. If you have cameras like this is a great B/C camera for you. However, if you're just a person who's a hybrid shooter, who needs good video and good photography, there are way better options out there in my opinion. If you like this video, make sure you share, like, subscribe, and comment, and let me know your thoughts on the Canon EOS R. I could be wrong about my assumption. It was a fun camera to use. It just was not for me. And I will see you next time. See you later.